I congratulate this university for actually organizing this research conference. So just I will follow this outline. First I will talk about emerging infectious disease, how do we define it, just to make it more a little bit academic. And then I'll talk about factors that favor the spread of these diseases. And we'll just shallowly go over which recent experiences do we have on emerging infectious disease in Ethiopian context or in Ethiopian geography. And then we will see just about the current pandemic, even though I'm not going to the details because most of the details will be presented by specific presentations in the sessions to follow. And then we will see COVID-19 timeline. That is mainly to see what we have learned from the past epidemics, starting from the Spanish flu of 1980, having in mind. And then the just threats or we could say challenges, and then we'll also discuss about the opportunities, and finally I'll try to summarize it. So when we say emerging infectious disease, it is just an infectious disease whose incidences in humans is just increased over the past 2 decades. Because when we talk about the epidemiology and the distance of any disease, it should be limited with time and place. And these emerging infectious diseases include actually new diseases that are caused by previously known pathogen or a new strain of just a known pathogen. Or it could be just a known disease that have moved into new geographic area or host population. If you remember some of the infectious diseases that we know in Ethiopian context, for example, if you take the one which the State Minister has indicated about it is elimination, malaria. Previously we know it is dependent on altitude. But now, those places which were previously not known to be malarious can be just malaria-prone area because of the changes in environment, because of the changes in population and everything. That is just, that could be included. Other one is just known diseases that have increased in incidence due to new transmission mode, changes in environment, or new virulence mutations that can actually increase, for example, the epidemiological fitness of the organism so that it can be highly transmittable, it can be resistant to some drugs so that it can keep being transmitted from an individual to the next. So, because of this, infectious diseases are actually continuing threats in both developing and developed countries. So something literally what we know is previously and also including the nation that we live in, that means in Ethiopia, the magnitude of this infectious disease is just substantially reduced. But when it comes to the emerging type of diseases, these are not limited to a boundary. These are not limited to economy. These are not limited to civilization. Therefore, they're just knocking every door of the poor as well as the rich. You can take the question, and the example in question, for example, that of COVID-19, which is very recent. You can take also other types which have been having, even though they are having limited geographical coverage, like that of the H5N1 virus that has been spreading around the other countries. Some of these have been effectively controlled because of the concerted effort at global level. For example, smallpox today is not an agenda, but it can be used actually by other entities. But there are new diseases that are actually coming, like that of the one which I explained earlier, like severe acute respiratory syndrome, that is SARS virus, influenza virus, which are actually continually appearing and reappearing. Because when you look at the causative agents of these diseases, the RNA viruses, majority of the cases. And RNA viruses do have high capacity to mutate. When they are mutating, they are having different potentials, they are having different capacities, they are having different characteristics that make them actually to change their host of infection to change their capacity to be actually more transmissible. On the other hand, even though we said because of the conservatory efforts there are reduction in the burden of, for example, TB, in the burden of the HIV, even though we have heard from the State Minister earlier that there is increase in, for example, because of behavioral modification or negligence on HIV. There are other organisms that are causing malaria and tuberculosis. Even bacterial pneumonia are just now reappearing in the form of resistance to the to the commonly drugs that we use for treatment. So infectious diseases can also be deliberately introduced and they can be used in bioterrorism. Mainly this is related with biosecurity. For example, the issue of anthrax, which is becoming very sensitive, and even it is the tool of war between even the industrialized countries, like the smallpox, tularemia that is caused by Francisella tularensis. So just I'm showing you this slide to simply appreciate that infectious diseases are not time-bound, just are appearing and reappearing. And they have been with human populations throughout time. So just I indicated a little about the Spanish flu of 1980, which Ethiopia has also experienced, which has actually claimed lots of lives. But the point is, just even though just indicated, just circled in red like that of the anthrax, which can be deliberately used. Then there are TB, the Ebola virus, the Zika, the influenza virus, and the SARS. But something that we fail to grasp as to my comprehension is, what did we learn by experiencing those epidemics? Has the health system used those epidemics as opportunity, or did we practice the issue of, or the style of panic and then forget style? Because I was trying to look into this, the documentations, what has just the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic in Ethiopia has left us an experience in terms of capacity, in terms of health system modification, in terms of human resources. I couldn't get it so much. So, coming to the factors that are favoring the spread of the infectious disease, these are just very much known, like population growth, even though we may say just we can take as an advantage, population growth is just advantageous. But if the health system is not capable of providing every service that the population needs, it's going to be just very much conducive environment for these emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases to be just widespread. Increasing poverty and migration, specifically these days, when there is a poverty, then there is going to be malnutrition, there is going to be difficulty in having proper housing. All these things will favor the spread of the disease. Urban migration, specifically during the last 20 years in Ethiopia, there has been huge urban expansion, that means urbanization. But there has also been problems associated with urbanization because the infrastructure, including the basic needs, are not met actually appropriately, which can cover the spread of these diseases. But the most important thing, which are not limited to the Ethiopian context, is the globally interconnected or integrated economy, international mobility by tourists, workers, migrants, and refugees. If you take that of the case of COVID-19, the source is just understandably, even though there are still questions, is not from Africa or from Europe or from America. It is from China, and then the epicenter was just China. But Today, you can imagine how many countries are reporting on COVID-19 in terms of the number of cases that they are seeing and in terms of the number of days that they are reporting on a daily basis. So these are actually the factors that are contributing. And changes in habitats of animals and arthropods that transmit disease. Probably just while I was a child, while I was just going out to the field just to see wild animals, we should have to go to the forest. Like by the time, there were forest coverage in our area. But today, you don't see those forests. Some of you know just, for example, there are certain animals that you can see just in cities or towns these days. If you go to Jima University, where I come from, looking at cafeterias, monkeys and baboons is just, just day-to-day experience. We don't know what type of pathogens they do have, what can we be infected with, and everything. And then the arthropods that transmit disease can also be just, they are also changing their habitats. Then changes in the way food is processed and distributed, because you can now just see foods being served on the streets, and you can see how they are produced, how they could be contaminated, and then how can they follow the transmission of the disease. The other factor is microbial adaptation and change, mainly because of the drug pressure, also because of the other host pressures. They can change and they can also adapt, and then they can be fit to be transmitted from animal to humans, for example, because most of the epidemic pathogens that we have seen, they trace their root to animal origin. The climate change, which you know very well, because of the climate change, we have seen, for example, the case of malaria. We are now just, you will see some examples like that of the arboviral diseases that we have experienced during the last 5 or 6 years in Ethiopia. Then breakdown of public health measures. Even if you take that of COVID-19, yesterday after coming from Jima, I was walking around the downtown Nakante. Then I was putting on my mask. Then when I just look right and left, except me, no one was actually just wearing masks. At the same time, I was passing by police. The police is not enforcing the regulation of October 2020. So that is actually, I couldn't interpret it more than the breakdown of public health measure, because there is law, but it must be actually enforced. So if that's going to lead to the elimination or eradication of COVID-19, I will leave it to you. War, because it can lead to instability, it can lead to migration, it can lead to lots of factors, famine, and inadequate political commitment can also lead to the spread of these infectious diseases. And also the intent to harm, just the ones like that we have indicated earlier, like the use of anthrax, smallpox, and others. So, to make it more relevant to our situation, what were the recently, just examples, not the full picture, what were the recently emerging infectious diseases in Ethiopian context? We can cite 2 of them, the past and also some of them are the present. The arboviral disease like the yellow fever, chikungunya, and also dengue fever. And the recent one, which we are still in, is the coronavirus disease, that is COVID-19 specifically. So if you take that of the yellow fever, it is arthropod-borne viral disease that's transmitted by mosquito. And when you look at local reports, it's not the first time that this disease just appeared. It goes back to 1960s. If you look at this report that I shown you on the right side, it is a report from the 1961 to 1962, and they were reporting about the retrospective serological evidence for contamination, concomitant Ebola or Ebola-like virus infection, which they found actually to be just that of the yellow fever. Recent, in South nations and nationalities in Gurage zone, there was a report by WHO. So just coming again and again. Then also in South parts about Walaita zone in 2018, this is also the WHO report, which you can see that there has been reports. But something which I'll come back when I discuss about challenges is that the results of the Walaita zone doesn't come actually from the local. The local actually they did IgM screening and then that of the PCR. But the verification of the etiology was done just in Dakar, Senegal. Then the dengue fever, which is caused by the same mosquito, and the local reports from Redwa many times, and also from Kabridahar, which is actually in the same eastern part of Ethiopia, and also from a different locality, which is actually reported again in the northern. The chikungunya is also another arboviral disease, which is, in this case, the most important thing is that there is no commercially available vaccine, and the local reports indicate that there were epidemics in 2016 and 2019 in Redwa. In the northern part as well, in Matama and Domara. So just when you look at the link between the two, you can see that how much they are being imported, because Redwa is also the outlet to outside countries, and also once upon a time, Matama and Domara were also just the sites through which they were being communicated with that of Sudan. So the recent ones, which will just focus on disease by coronavirus, including COVID-19. But so what is the origin of this one? Just, I'm not making to the details, but the known, the already available and convincing data indicate that they are from the zoonotic, mainly the bats, and then we don't know where the novel coronavirus just come from, and there is no just such convincing evidence that has arisen just today. But there are anecdotal reports which indicate that they come from they come from supermarkets. Some of them are also just